On February 9, 2024, in Baldwin-Borough, Pennsylvania, a tragedy unfolded behind the closed doors of an apartment. A young mother, 20 years old, was found shot multiple times, her body motionless on the floor. In the next room, her 1-year-old daughter sat alone, unaware of the horror that had just taken place. She was unharmed, but her life had changed forever. The suspect, the child's own father. A man who had once stood beside her, now accused of ending her life. What happened inside that apartment? Was this an argument that went too far? Was it about jealousy? A power struggle? Or was there something that had been building long before that night? The answers would come, but not before leaving behind grief, confusion, and a child without a mother. Where are you watching from? Drop a comment below and let's discuss this case together. Before the world knew her name through news reports, before her story became a tragedy, Ramia Griffin was simply Ramia. A daughter, a sister, a friend. A young woman with dreams, hobbies, and a future she was building one step at a time. She was born and raised in Pennsylvania, growing up in the McKees Rocks area where she spent her childhood surrounded by family and friends. It was a community that shaped her, a place where people looked out for each other. She carried those values with her as she got older, always putting the people she loved first. Ramia attended Stowe Rocks High School, where she was known for her bright personality and ability to make people laugh. She wasn't the loudest in the room, but she was someone people naturally gravitated toward. Teachers saw potential in her, describing her as ambitious, kind-hearted, and full of life. She had a future ahead of her, a future she was working toward. Outside of school, Ramia had a passion for dancing and music. It was a way for her to express herself, to unwind, to feel free. That love for creative expression led her to TikTok, where she found a space to share her world. She posted videos that captured her personality, dancing, lip-syncing, laughing. People connected with her. Her following grew not because she was chasing fame, but because she was simply being herself. But beyond social media, beyond the fun, there was something that mattered more than anything else: her daughter. Becoming a mother at 19 changed her world completely. Every choice she made, every plan she had, centered around her child. She wasn't just going through the motions of motherhood, she embraced it. She was determined to give her daughter the best life possible, to raise her in a home filled with love and warmth. Her family saw the way she adored her daughter. Friends spoke about how much she had grown, how motherhood had brought out a different kind of strength in her. She had goals, ambitions, things she wanted to accomplish, not just for herself, but for the little girl who depended on her. Ramia was not supposed to be a name on a memorial. She was supposed to have years ahead of her. She was supposed to be watching her daughter grow up, building the life she had always dreamed of. But all of that was stolen in an instant. Our hearts go out to the family, friends, and loved ones of Ramia Griffin. Losing someone so young, so full of life, and with so much ahead of her is an unimaginable tragedy. To those who knew her personally, to those who called her a sister, a daughter, and a friend, we cannot begin to understand the depth of your pain, but we stand with you in remembering the beautiful soul that she was. To her fans and followers on social media who connected with her through her videos, her laughter, and the light she shared, your grief is felt, and your love for her does not go unnoticed. Ramia was more than a name in a news headline. She was a mother, a sister, and a person who left a mark on the people around her. May her memory live on in the hearts of those who loved her, and may her story serve as a reminder that no life should ever be taken so soon. Before the headlines, before the crime scene, before the investigations, there was Ramia Griffin. She wasn't just another case file. She was a daughter, a sister, a friend, and most importantly, a mother. At 20 years old, she was finding her place in the world, balancing her dreams, her responsibilities, and the joys of raising a child. To those who knew her, she was full of life, someone who laughed easily and found happiness in the simplest moments. She had a presence that made people feel comfortable, like they had known her forever. Online, people knew her as Remy, a TikTok creator with a growing audience. She shared glimpses of her life, her personality shining through in every post, dancing, lip-syncing, smiling at the camera, engaging with people who followed her journey. But beyond the videos, away from the social media world, there was a role that meant more to her than anything else: being a mother. Ramaya became a mother at 19, a reality that changed everything, but one she embraced fully. She loved her daughter in a way only a mother could, completely and unconditionally. Every picture, every post, every conversation reflected that love. She wanted to give her baby the best life, to raise her in a home filled with warmth and security. It wasn't always easy, but she was determined. Every sacrifice, every plan she made revolved around her. Her sister Maria saw firsthand the kind of mother Ramaya was. More than sisters, they were best friends. They shared everything: secrets, struggles, dreams for the future. Maria watched her sister pour her heart into raising her daughter, working hard to balance her life as a young mom. And then, in an instant, everything changed. The phone call, the shock, the disbelief, the realization that Ramaya was gone, that the person who had once stood beside her, laughing, dreaming, planning for the future, had been taken away. She had so much ahead of her. She was doing everything for her baby. That's how her family remembers her, as someone who had plans, who deserved more time, who should still be here. But life doesn't always go the way it should. The people we trust don't always turn out to be who we thought they were, and sometimes the ones closest to us are the ones we should fear the most. For Ramaya, being a mother was her greatest joy, but in the end it may have also been the thing that put her in harm's way. On February 9, 2024, at 4:30 p.m., a chilling disturbance shattered the routine quiet of Baldwin Borough, Pennsylvania. A gunshot, then another, then another. Neighbors, frozen in uncertainty, hesitated before dialing 911. Some thought they had misheard. Others were certain of what they had just witnessed. One call after another, reports of gunfire inside an apartment complex flooded emergency lines. Then silence. No sounds from inside, no movement, no calls for help. Within minutes, first responders arrived, lights flashing against the brick exterior of the complex. Officers rushed forward, weapons drawn, unsure of what they were about to walk into. The door to apartment 6A was closed, locked. No signs of forced entry, no shattered windows, no immediate answers. But the seconds were slipping away. Every moment lost could mean the difference between life and death. The decision was made. They breached the door. Inside, the air was heavy, the room eerily still, and then they saw her. A young woman lay sprawled across the living room floor, her body motionless, blood seeping into the carpet beneath her, multiple gunshot wounds. No movement, no breath. There was no need to check for a pulse. She was gone. Ramaya Griffin, 20 years old, mother, daughter, friend, dead. But something else caught their attention. A sound, faint, small, a noise so quiet it could have been missed. In the next room, tucked away in the shadows, they found a baby, a 1-year-old girl, alone sitting on the floor, staring. She didn't cry, didn't scream, didn't move. She had been there the entire time, close enough to hear everything. Too young to understand, too small to process the horror that had unfolded just feet away. Officers rushed to secure the child, lifting her gently, carrying her away from the scene that would forever mark the beginning of her story. Physically, she was unharmed, but her life had just changed in a way no one could undo. Her mother was gone, and the only question that remained was, who did this? The evidence spoke louder than words. Bullet casings scattered near the body, the placement of the gunshots, the absence of forced entry. This was no random attack, no robbery gone wrong. This wasn't a case of being in the wrong place at the wrong time. This was intentional. This was personal. Someone had walked into that apartment knowing exactly what they were about to do. Investigators moved quickly. Who had access to Ramaya's apartment? Who knew her routine? Who would want to hurt her? The answer came almost immediately: one name. A name that wasn't unfamiliar, a name that carried history, a name tied directly to the little girl now left without a mother. Edlin Atongwa. Surveillance footage confirmed it. Witness statements placed him at the apartment earlier that day. The timeline was forming, and it was damning. He had been there. He had every reason to be there. But when the gunshots rang out, when the neighbors made their calls, when police swarmed the scene, he was gone. The investigation was moving fast, but the truth was moving even faster. The evidence was undeniable. The connection was clear. The man police were now looking for wasn't a stranger, wasn't an outsider. He was someone who had once been part of Ramia's life, someone she had trusted, someone she had once believed would be there for her and their child, and now he was the prime suspect in her murder. For 4 years, Ramia Griffin and Adeline Itangwa were together. They had shared moments that to outsiders looked like love. They had history, memories, experiences that tied them together. But something changed. Something shifted after the birth of their daughter. What was once a relationship built on connection became a situation built on obligation, co-parenting. A reality that many navigate, but for Ramia, it was not as simple as it seemed. Her sister, Mariah, saw it before she fully understood it. It was in the way Ramaya spoke about him, the way she hesitated when his name was mentioned, the way she seemed to carry a weight that no one else could see. She never said much, but the silence said enough. What happens behind closed doors doesn't get spoken of much, but there were things I heard that raised an eyebrow. Mariah had concerns. She didn't always voice them, but they existed. And looking back now, she wonders if there were signs she missed, if there were moments when Ramaya wanted to say more but held back, if there was fear beneath her silence. The transition from being a couple to co-parents wasn't smooth. The closeness they once had was gone. Conversations that used to be easy became tense. Interactions that used to be easy became tense. Interactions that once held affection now felt like a necessity rather than a choice. And then there were the unspoken moments. The times he showed up unexpectedly, the times he called at odd hours, the times Ramia's mood shifted after talking to him. Family members say there were issues, things that weren't always obvious but were always there. Some arguments, some disagreements, the normal struggles of co-parenting. Or so it seemed. Had Ramia felt unsafe? Had she seen something in him that others hadn't? Did she ever think she needed to walk away for good? And if she did, was it already too late? Then came the funeral. A gathering meant for mourning, for grieving, for remembering the life that had been taken too soon. The people who loved her came together, searching for some kind of comfort in a reality that made no sense. And there he was. Adeline Itangwa sat among them, silent, expressionless, distant yet present. He kept to himself, said nothing, barely interacted with the family. His presence alone felt out of place, but there he remained, watching, waiting. Was he feeling guilt? Was it remorse, or was it something else? Days later, when news of his arrest came, the questions only grew. Why had he come? What was he thinking as he sat among the very people mourning her loss? Did he believe he would walk away unnoticed, unchallenged, untouched by what he had done? For the family, for those who loved Ramaya, that funeral would never be forgotten, because they now knew they had sat in the same space, shared the same air, grieved the same loss, with the very person accused of taking her life. As investigators gathered evidence, one name kept coming up. One person who had the motive, the opportunity, and a connection too deep to ignore. Adeline Itangwa. He wasn't an outsider. He wasn't someone who had entered Ramia's life briefly and disappeared. He was the father of her child, a man she had once trusted, someone who had been close to her for years. But trust is not protection, and love does not always mean safety. Detectives worked quickly. Surveillance footage placed him near the apartment complex around the time of the shooting. Witnesses confirmed seeing him. His presence that day was no coincidence. Every step he took, every movement he made became another piece of the puzzle. A puzzle that, when put together, pointed directly at him. He didn't run. He didn't hide. When law enforcement closed in, he was exactly where they expected him to be. Monroeville. It wasn't a dramatic chase. It wasn't a scene out of a movie. It was quiet, unsettlingly so. When officers approached, he offered no resistance, no fight, no explanation. He was taken into custody without a single word. But silence doesn't erase what had already been done. The charges were immediate: first-degree homicide, the intentional and premeditated taking of a life, the kind of charge that carries the heaviest weight, the kind that doesn't come with an easy way out. Endangering the welfare of a child. A separate charge, but one that carried its own weight, because this wasn't just about Ramia. This wasn't just about the crime scene. There was a baby in that apartment. A 1-year-old who had been left alone in the aftermath, a child whose life had been altered in ways she could never understand. And then, there was the moment Mariah learned about his arrest. She wasn't sitting at home waiting for news. She wasn't glued to a television refreshing updates. She was on her way to a custody hearing. A hearing about the very child left behind in that apartment. She had lost her sister, and now she was preparing for a battle over the future of her niece. She had no idea that at that very moment the man accused of taking Ramia's life was being taken into custody. The timing was almost impossible to comprehend. While she was preparing to fight for her niece's safety, police were securing the man responsible for making her an orphan. Some moments stay with you forever. Some realizations sink in so deeply they never leave. That was one of them. The moment when grief, justice, and the weight of an irreversible loss collided all at once. When a life is taken so suddenly, the shock ripples far beyond the crime scene. It isn't just a family that mourns. It isn't just close friends who feel the loss. A community feels it. A town carries it. People who never met her find themselves thinking about her, wondering how something like this could happen. In the days following Ramia Griffin's death, those who loved her came together. They needed to honor her, to make sure her name wasn't reduced to another tragic headline, to remind the world that she was more than a case number, more than a victim. A vigil was held at Stowe Rock's High School's football field, the same place she had spent time as a student, the same place that had been part of her life long before anyone could have imagined it would one day hold a gathering in her memory. People stood together, holding candles, sharing stories, remembering the young woman who had once walked those halls, who had once smiled and laughed without knowing how soon it would all be taken away. Her family spoke. They talked about the light Ramia brought into their lives, the way she loved her daughter, the dreams she still had, the things she should have lived to see. There were tears, but there was also anger, because this should have never happened. She should still be here. She should still be raising her daughter, living her life, making memories that wouldn't be cut short. On social media, the reaction was overwhelming. Friends, strangers, people from across the country, so many voiced their grief. So many demanded justice. A young mother killed, a child left without her. The questions kept coming. How does this keep happening? How many more women will lose their lives at the hands of someone they once trusted? Because the truth is, this isn't an isolated case. It's not a rare occurrence. Every year, countless young women are killed by a current or former partner. Some cases make the news, many do not, but the numbers don't lie. According to studies, more than half of all female homicide victims are killed by an intimate partner. These aren't strangers. These aren't random attacks. These are the people they once loved, the people they once believed would never hurt them. The signs aren't always obvious. Sometimes they are so small they're easy to dismiss. A controlling comment here, a raised voice there, the slow shift from love to something else. Something that takes away freedom, takes away safety, takes away the right to leave without fear. Not everyone recognizes it until it's too late. Not everyone knows where to turn. That's why conversations like this matter. That's why raising awareness matters. Because somewhere, right now, another woman is in a situation she doesn't know how to escape. Another young mother is convincing herself that the person she once loved wouldn't actually hurt her. Another family is watching from the outside, hoping they're wrong about what they're seeing. Ramia's story is heartbreaking, but it shouldn't be forgotten. It should serve as a reminder that no one deserves to live in fear. A reminder that no second chance should come at the cost of someone's life. A reminder that when something doesn't feel right, it shouldn't be ignored. If you or someone you know is experiencing domestic violence, there are resources. There are places to turn. There are people who will help. Don't wait. Don't assume it will get better on its own, because too often these stories end before they ever should. Remaya Griffin should still be here. She should still be raising her daughter. She should still be sharing her life with the people who loved her. But now, all that's left is the fight for justice. Do you think justice will be served? Do you think the system will hold the person responsible accountable? Let us know in the comments. Let's make sure her name isn't forgotten. Let's make sure her story is heard. Thank you for watching. Until next time.